Good morning, everybody. Welcome into another wonderful Love and Lightning podcast episode. We are excited to be back, and we have another really cool guest to introduce you to today. I'm Dr. LA Campbell, and Maestra Paula Leeper and I are here. We try to be here every other week with something new for you. So without further ado, I'm going to have Maestra Paula start the sacred circle.
Thank you, Dr. LA. Holy Creator, we present ourselves in a humble and holy way, and we ask for the energies of the East direction to come and warm our tonales, to warm our places of wisdom, to bring the light into our body so that as we speak, that we share the light, we share our experiences in a good way. We turn towards the West direction, the place of women, the place of our hearts, and the place of fire. We ask that our passions and our compassions come through our voices so that we can share not only our experiences, but our process that we go through as we're learning to release and let go. And as we face the South direction, the place of our warrior, the place of our inner will, the place of our inner child, that we honor those places inside each of us today. And to the North direction, the place of our body, the place of our spirit, the place of obsidian, the place of the smoky mirror, the Tezcatlipoca, the things that are the shadow and the reflection for us, that we honor those places as we talk about who we are today. And to Mother Earth for allowing us to walk on your belly, allowing us to place your feet near your heartbeat so that we have stability and a place to land. And to Father Sky, Grandmother Moon, the new moon today, to the cosmic gourd, the place of all knowledge and all wisdom, we ask that you bring our ancestors to us and allow us to speak the good words today. Ometeo. We are here with Kelley Dalton today. She's also known as Shaman Jack. She is the owner and founder of a website called And She's Creation. She's in Los Angeles, California. She is a shaman, a spirit speaker, a certified herbalist, a licensed health insurance agent. She is a Reiki master, and she is getting her recertification as a personal trainer with the emphasis on nutrition. I'm super excited about that one myself. And she is going to share how she brings spirituality and the physical body and mental health together. Those are some of her deepest passions that she has, and she's professionally been helping people since 2016. So welcome, Kelley. Thank you so much for coming and blessing us and sharing time with us. We really, really honor and appreciate that.
Thank you both for having me. I'm honored to be on here. As you mentioned, I've been treating clients since 2016, but I've been helping people for most of my life and trying to figure out who I am, where I came from, and what I have to offer in this life. When I really delved into this business and accepted the title of shaman, I was already working on my system, my body, and my mind, maybe since I was about the age of 10. But at that time, it came to me through guides, signs in the universe, and other ways, including you, Paula, as my medicine woman, that I had a bigger purpose. And it also became very clear at that time that my passion really was the body, the physical body here, and the connection to the mind and the spirit through other dimensions. So that's really the focus that I have, but bringing everything into one and activating everything in the lifetime that we have here on this planet is truly my passion and whatnot. So yeah, so I appreciate you having me. I'm opening my business, like you mentioned, to bigger things. As you mentioned, I'm a Reiki master, but I'm also studying to get recertified in personal training. And I even decided to accept the title of death doula, which I'm in training for certification, because death is also one of my specialties. And I'm sure we'll delve into it later, but I've experienced quite the amount of family death and friend death in this lifetime. And I've also died several times. As you've heard shamans' deaths in the past, I've experienced many of those. So I
Beautiful. LA, do you have any questions?
I think let's just start in with what drives you as an individual. How did you navigating, since you talked about having experienced so much of death around you and within and that kind of thing, how does that really shape the ins and outs of your path today, where you are today?
Death is really where I started my journey. And I mean, as in I tried to take my own life as a child. I want to say somewhere around the age of maybe 11 or 12 after I received my period. And after I figured out, well, this is going to be pretty hard to live this life. I was a pretty confused child and definitely in the box in my shell for most of my life, trying to figure out who I was. But there was a key factor that night when I tried to take my life. I had been diagnosed with asthma since I was the age of 4, and I just decided to try to overdose on my asthma medication. And when I went to close my eyes after taking, I don't know, 15, 20 pills, I knew it wasn't going to work. And what I said to the beings on the other side was, I'll see you all. As in, I knew at that time that there was a lot more than one that I wasn't seeing and that was around me at that time. And it didn't work. And so I decided to open up a dialogue at that point and share with my parents that I did try to take my own life because I really didn't want to go to school either. That was a big factor. I was never fond of school because I just wasn't being understood and I wasn't learning the same way other children were. And that led me down my introduction to mental health. And I was introduced into a facility. But from that point, it opened my awareness as a child that adults don't know everything. I sure as heck didn't know everything, and there was a lot more to discover. And I knew I was gonna, at that time, not receive the answers that I needed to receive. So I figured out it was up to me to start doing research. And that's really when my doors opened. I started studying world religions. I just got all the different books because my father was extremely religious and my mother was really just happy to have a community. And so I had to find myself in between that kind of hot mess that it was. So opening the door to studying world religions and then finding these different similarities as a child in all of these religions. And then when I turned around and questioned adults, not receiving the answers that I needed, but also hearing some of the same answers from different people who didn't believe the same things. So that really opened things up for me. But from that point, I decided to study myself even deeper, and that includes my physical body, my sexual health, my mental health. And when I got into my early 20s, really things started coming into play because I became more of the woman that I was at a younger age. And I want to say maybe about mid-20s is really when I experienced my first true death of a person, which would be my full blood brother, the only one that I had on this planet, but kind of like a twin. And he left here a little bit earlier, and it was followed by a series of 4 more deaths at that point. I had him, there was my uncle, then there was my mother, then my grandfather, and another uncle, all of within a course of a few years. So that really is what led me into my comfortability, I guess, my comfort with death, understanding it. I wasn't necessarily feeling a lot of spirits from the other side, but my dreams became very much activated. Because as a child, I also was an extremely lucid dreamer. It would maybe take me about 2 to 4 hours to fall asleep. And that was really all I had as a kid. That was mine. That was the world that no one could tap into. And I didn't have to explain anything to anyone else, but I could develop the realities that I wanted to. So we fast forward to all of these deaths occurring. And then I started to feel these people who were passing, and they started to give me messages in the dream world. And that just led me down a deeper path, which then introduced me to hallucinogenic plants. And I'm sure we're all familiar with those. Yeah.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard your story quite in order like that. So it's powerful. That's intense, Kelley. That's really, I know you kind of said it a little bit fast and without taking a lot of breaths, but that was a lot of death medicine poured into you at a very young age.
Yeah, and I don't want to overtalk, so that's why I keep taking pauses, because I know that my story is pretty thick.
Yeah, that's sacred medicine that you're carrying and coming at this time in your life coming back into taking a little training on to become or continue being a death doula, right? So many losses at a very young age and experiencing that death through trying to unalive yourself.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too much into Pandora's box there because I
Mhm.
know we have a time, but in that process, I had also been sexually assaulted, and a couple of the people in my life didn't believe my story until much later. And aside from that, I had also prayed, if anyone's heard of her, the Hindu goddess Kali, a goddess of death, time, and destruction. I did a meditation. It was really more of a yantra and a mantra combined, and it was to pray to destroy your ego, but also everything in your life that you think you know. And that really was the beginning of my process, even before I discovered hallucinogenic drugs.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love this conversation because even though we've had many conversations, I've not heard you put it in quite a rapid fire like that. So it makes more sense to hear it put in like a linear place. So you had mentioned that you got to go to find books on different religions. Tell us about a little bit about that process. Like, did you just ask your parents, hey, can I go to the library? Did you go to the store? How did you get a hold of this information, this wisdom, this knowledge? How did you grab that up?
I didn't ask any permission because that was me as a kid. I was like, let me just do the research and figure out how I can get the answers without bringing adults into the situation and their unwanted opinions, really is where I started. So libraries are actually absolutely where I went to. Free to the public. They're open certain hours. You can figure that out online and you don't have to ask anyone's permission to check out a book.
Mm.
And most adults don't even pay attention to the children checking out adult books unless they include something like pornography. So around the time that I had started doing this, my dad also had, because like I mentioned, he's very religious. He had a project, him having a lot of mixed children. He had a project he called miscegenation.com. I'm not sure if he ever truly understood the term or the word miscegenation in so many ways, but he wanted me to create a website to bring together mixed children, but he wanted it to be based off of the beginning of religion and the mixing of all of the races, because he had his own theories. So he had actually asked me to do a research project around this time in the library anyway, and he was going to pay me as a child to do this. And so I happily just went in there and with my interests and decided to go up and down these aisles in the library and find these books that I wanted to research on. So as I was doing research for him, I was also doing research for myself. And aside from that, definitely staying up way too late in the middle of the nights trying to watch documentaries on witchcraft and Santeria and voodoo, all the things that I didn't want adults to catch me watching or whatnot. And that just took me way deep into la la land of all the possibilities. There was even a point where I decided to test the devil and God by ripping up a Bible. Nobody smite me or anything. I have respect for the book, but I was just like, watch me. I'm go ahead and do this, and you do something. Show me the consequences of my actions here, because I was at that point as a child in a lot of pain with my period, and just in a lot of emotional pain, not being understood and not understanding who I am. Because as I'll mention, I am also identified as two-spirit. Although I was born female and I definitely am a woman, my consciousness is a male and female spirit together, and I am a whole being. But it's taken me almost 40 years to understand that. So as a child, I was very confused, trying to find my femininity and then also trying to reject this outward energy of who I'm supposed to be as a person.
You do not follow any of the conscious laws of the public at all. I know this about you.
No.
Hey, I'm all for it. Be you. Yeah.
Like-minded.
Because I'm sorry, a lot of the conscious public has not got it right.
Nope.
They are so hung up on black and white, they've missed all those other shades in between. It's like, yeah, I'm with you. Wow, that's amazing. Did you ever through the process, I know you said you kind of you worked with Kelley Ma there for just a few moments, but were there other processes where you tested going through? I spent a lot of time kind of doing similar stuff as you, probably more from an academic versus a, right? Just from an academic mindset, because I was trying to figure out why people just couldn't get along. Like, this doesn't, and it always seemed to come back to religion. Like, why? What is the big deal? You know? And were there other practices along the way, like that when you were trying out? So when you were looking through some of these others and some of their tenets that weren't maybe off the wall, although, because there are some that are, that are off the wall, but was there other stuff that you said, let me see what this feels like and let me try this on?
Absolutely. In fact, when I met Paula, she met my sister and I at an event in Mesa, Arizona, and Paula immediately said, "You two are shamans and priestesses." And at that time, I was already mulling around accepting the title because people had used it. And at one point, we had a side conversation like, why do I use this term? And I said, I use this term because it's all encompassing. It's really hard to describe what I do with people. And it's just, I've done so much research. I've tested the fates so many times and then adopted different modalities that it's hard to define me as anything else. So yes, for sure, I have tested in sober ways. I have tested in hallucinogenic ways. I have tested in dreams. And I definitely believe in more than one God, but I also believe in a Godhead, if you will. And I've asked the other side in many different ways through rituals, ceremonies, trying witchcraft things, trying hoodoo things, you name it. I have done different things to say, prove it to me now, but especially on fungi, on psychedelic mushrooms. Those have been that was my biggest door opener for me. And my first trip, in fact, I heard voices like they came in, and I say they came in as in like there was about 2 or 3 of them. And they sat there on my first trip and they said, we've been trying to show you signs that we are with you. And we have been trying to hint and warn you at certain things your entire life. So they took me on a whole movie reel and said, we did this, we did that. And they were like, this is safe. This is what you need to do. You need to focus on remembering your trips and documenting things, because at that time I would forget everything. And they said, this is going to be a lifelong journey in so many ways. And then from that point, I was like, okay, so I'll take these trips intentionally. All the way down to, I'll plan days where I fast and I'll eat the actual medicine at a certain time because I'm trying to call in the energy of that time. And I'll wait for it to activate, and then I would allow the energy to come through me. And as Paula mentioned, spirit speaker, also known as a medium to some people. I've only recently just been granted those gifts. I asked for those gifts 4 or 5 years ago with my mother, who passed away on the other side. I wrote a spiritual contract. She moved my hands through the ink to make me ask for like what I'm going to be getting out of this deal. And they've only recently granted these gifts, especially since I've been to New Orleans in the past 2 months, but especially, I want to say 2 weeks ago, they came through my body in multiple ways during another medicinal trip. As in, I had probably about 10 to 12 beings with me. They were speaking through my voice. They were acting through my movement, and they were dancing through my dance, which is a very big medicine for me, dancing. So yes.
I love it. Awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
We thank you.
That's right.
So I do remember the first time that we met, and I just looked at you and I'm like, yep, you're a shaman. And how many years is that? It's been like, what, 10 years probably?
Just about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that you just exude. It's all over you. And you have this very unique way that you move on the planet. It's very attractive. Like people are attracted to your energy. And I know you have to repel that quite a bit too. So
Transmute it. Just take it and transmute it into something else.
yeah. So we talked a little bit about your gifts as a child, and it seems like the gifts you had as a child are the gifts that you have now. So you've just carried them forward, but owning them, owning what they are. Being a spirit speaker, I've always known you to be that. I don't feel like it's anything new. I'm not debunking that for you. I'm confirming, right? That you've always done that for me. I can call you and not say a word, and you're like, "What's going on in your left shoulder?" I'm like, "Oh, by the way, yeah, exactly that." So you've always been able to, since I've known you, to channel that energy and to use it in such a good way that it helps people to heal. But one of the things that I've watched you do since I've known you is to heal yourself. And it's so very inspiring. When we're on our healing journeys, it's all about what's inside of us, but how do we get to the inside of that? And you've really taught me how to access those parts of me that I can get to. So can you talk a little bit about the nutrition and your exercise and your dance? Can you kind of bring that together for us? Because I think that's an interesting point that all humans kind of miss that sometimes. They're like, oh, I'm just unhealthy and it's always going to be that way. And you don't see the world that way.
No, I was born premature, and I know I got here early because I had some stuff to do. But I was diagnosed with asthma at 4, and I mean very active asthma. I was a sickly child. I was constantly getting the flu, pneumonia, tonsils. I want to say were removed around 7. Then I was diagnosed with open angular juvenile glaucoma around the age of
Oh,
9.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I really wasn't happy with that. In fact, I pressed
Yeah.
the doctors. I pressed the doctors around 11. I said, look, what happens if I don't take these drops every day? And he's like, well, you're going to be blind by the time you're 30. I said, okay, sure. And I want to say I got to like 19 or 20. And I went to go see a doctor one day and they laughed. They were like, yeah, you got glaucoma, but I wish I had your vision. And my vision at that time hadn't changed in 2-3 years. I want to say 30 years later, it still has not changed at all. So that I want to say the asthma and the glaucoma were my 2 biggest pushers, but I would wait for my mother and my brother to go to bed. I started doing this around 10 years old. We had a hallway door I could shut while they were sleeping, and I would turn off the lights. I would find whatever dance shows I could across the globe, especially on TV, and I would dance. That was my first love. My mother did put me in gymnastics and ballet, but something in my soul just wanted to move. And it had to move alone and in privacy with no one watching. And I just did that, waiting for my one day where I would get to go to a rave or some kind of event. So I knew that music and dancing were my medicine to begin with. But as I got older, I really got, because I was definitely more masculine than feminine, really got into strength and wanting to build my body somehow and wanting to separate from having asthma and the pills I was taking every day, the inhaler I was having to use. If I went to my boyfriend's house and forgot my inhaler, it was an issue. So we fast forward to my early 20s and I get to Home Depot. And at that time I went to LA. It was 24-hour fitness, Torrance, California. And I started studying fitness. Actually, I'm sorry, I'll have to skip back. I want to say 15 or 16, someone took a picture of me and I was standing next to a friend and I looked quite large. And at that time I was 220 pounds. Can't believe I forgot this, but I could tell my mother was tap dancing around, not trying to say I had an issue with weight because I wasn't the child that you could just tell something to. And I knew that something was coming, some kind of conversation, and I didn't want their opinion. So I was like, I need to figure this out on my own. So my brother brought me Venice Gold's Gym bodybuilding book, and I read it. And I was like, well, let me put myself on a diet. Let me take myself to the gym. So at that time, for something in my soul was like, go to the gym and you need to work out and you need to go on a diet. I put myself on a 1,200 calorie a day diet at that time, eating mostly tuna and crackers, working out 2 hours a day for about 4 to 5 days a week. And then I would walk from one thing to the other just to get to my dad's house. So that was really my big kickoff. I lost 60 pounds as a 15, 16-year-old by myself. And that opened my doors. And then my love of mixed martial arts helped me later. But those things are really what skyrocketed and showed me, hey, I can do stuff on my own without other people's opinions. And I can heal some things. Because by the time I got done taking out the 60 pounds, I noticed my asthma was a lot better. And unfortunately, even though I'd been to asthmatic classes as a kid, no one really tells you, hey, if your body is lighter in weight, if you have less processed foods in your body. I know they're telling people now, but not back then.
Not then. Yeah.
Your system's going to be better. You might not have to use medication. And on top of that, my mother, she worked for Kaiser Permanente in California. She built these hospitals. So not only was I a sickly child in the system, but she was actually going to work for the system. So then we go back to my early 20s. And my brother one day, my older half brother said to me, you know, the flu virus they're injecting in your body is just a form of the dead virus. And I said, so you mean you guys are injecting dead cells into my body so that I can maybe not get the flu that you're trying to give me anyway? And that just, it clicked something in my brain. I was like, this doesn't make any sense at all. So I started working for 24 Hour Fitness, and I, at that point, obtained my first personal certification and trainer, I should say. And I also started working at Vitamin World at the same time and learning about herbs and supplements, and that opened my doors. And then I started taking kickboxing. And so I figured out, hey, my body really likes movement. It likes a lot of rough movement, and it likes a lot of herbs and supplements. And when I say herbs and supplements, I was taking like 15 to 20 pills a day, and they were all herbal, just vitamin things. So at that point, I was able to completely wean myself off of my asthma medication. And that proved a lot. And I was still taking my eye drops here and there, kind of not believing that I had this condition. And we get to a couple years later, and that was when I was sexually assaulted. I was also on Depo-Provera, the birth control pill, and questioning that too, because I was like, whoa, my mother already said I'm kind of bitch with these hormones in my system. So I'm like, do I need to continue this long term? Now I've been sexually assaulted, and I went and put on 60 pounds, 70 pounds. At that time, I got up to 298 pounds.
Wow.
Heaviest I'd ever been. And same thought clicked in my head. I said, okay, Kelley, your family and friends are probably going to get ready to talk to you about this because this is an issue. And I'm not going to be able to have this conversation because I don't want to hear it. So it's time to do something yet again. So that would be the second time that I went and put myself on a massive diet. And figured at that point, that's finally when I figured out, hey, I have the power to fix my system. And then I'm going to, long story short, the rest of this healing process so I can get to the point I'm at now. But from that point, I worked with autistic children. One of them kind of took me down, and that's when I cracked my knee cartilage. And I did experience pain. And I was told, you got to ride the knee till the wheels fall off. And I dealt with about 4 or 5 years of correction in my body, correcting my posture, finding the right shoes, which a lot of us don't wear.
Nope.
Because at that point, I was also introduced to the dancing field, the dancing scene in Arizona. And I was like, here goes the doors that I've been waiting to open for a lifetime, to the love, the music and the love of music that I have. And these people are playing what I want to hear. And I have an overabundance of stamina and endurance, and I'm ready to stand there for 5 to 6 hours, but I've got to figure out this knee pain without having to get surgery on it. Meanwhile, at that time, I was also questioning, I'd already removed the birth control out of my system. I was also questioning my eye drops, and I was like, I don't think I need these. I don't even believe that doctors understand glaucoma in its entirety. If you look it up, in some of the conditions, like it prevents your tear ducts from releasing fluid. There's a buildup, then it builds pressure. Then you have some retina detachment. Well, if you take a look at me as a child, one who couldn't show emotion, one who had an imbalance between the feminine and the masculine, one who as an adult was not understood either and trying to figure herself out. And then now I'm starting to let myself cry and drop tears because I've lost family members. I've lost myself. I've had journeys. All of a sudden, my eyes are showing some new improvements and whatnot. So yeah, so we get to the point I'm at now, and today I don't take any pain medication. You can catch me at one of these raves or events dancing for about 6 to 7 hours on almost nothing in my system, because I do believe in fasting and resetting your system. I don't wear a knee brace or anything special. I did try compression pants, and I even realized that was restricting my movement, and that's not healthy either. And something clicked in my soul. And as they said on the other side, they made it quite aware in some dreams too, that we all have the power to heal ourselves. The problem is we have Western medicine available, and we can't blame it on doctors. They were trained just like we were trained and taught, and they're frustrated just like we are frustrated. And if you ask a doctor, they don't really want you coming to them and saying, I have no idea what's going on with me. Let's do a variety of tests. What they want to hear is, I have something going on over here or over here. I've done some research. I've tried these methods here. I've also called in on the nurse line. They want to know that you did your homework so they can properly do their job to figure out what is going on from there, because it has a purpose, but it's not for them to be your lifetime of investigators. And on the other side of that, the other side of my passion is the mental health portion of it, which is half of my clients. I have a lot of clients who come to me and they're on all kinds of mental health cocktails, as they call it. And they're like just trying to get it right. And then they're trying to balance it between drinking and smoking and diet and exercise. There's just way too much.
Yeah.
So my answer to all of that, and especially because I know people are very afraid of it, is do not be afraid to dump your system. Don't be afraid to reset it, to fast it out, and to exhaust it and start from ground zero. So you can clear out everything that does not belong to you, or whatever you can, to figure out what does belong to you. That's been the most important thing in my process.
Well, I think it's also worth saying, and you brought up really kind of one concept that I think we're just not, in general in the West, it's not something we think about, but holding on to a lot of those emotional energies, and even holding on to certain mental energies, that's going to stop your flow of chi. So if you're stopping the flow of chi or ki, kundalini, you pick one, it's all the same. If you're stopping that flow, that's where that pressure builds up. And I know with the whole weight gain thing, all it takes is for me to be holding on to something, some emotion that I'm not dealing with correctly, or I haven't fully dealt with. And I literally will start to blow up before my very eyes. It is the craziest thing in the world. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so a lot of this stuff is, and I see this with my patients all the time, is that when we hold on to this stuff, well, of course, the physical body's going to start to hurt, because you're creating all this energetic pressure within there that's just bursting at the seams of body parts. Right. Mm-hmm. So something's got to give. If we don't deal with those things, then you're going to wear it because it doesn't have anywhere else to go. Right. So I think that's all awesome. I think that's great that you picked up on that. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch you.
But no, go for it.
To tap onto what you said is it's your belief of yourself.
Absolutely.
And as Paula said, I've never kind of conformed to the social norms, but I've also just never believed anything that anyone wants to tell me about anything. And if you go look into the Egyptian Book of the Dead, maybe the first few pages just talk about just the magic of your tongue and the words that you speak. It's as simple as that. They didn't have all the stuff we got. And if you look into the movie As Above, So Below, which is a horror movie about the catacombs in France, the point of that, at the end of that is, and there's one phrase, and you see it all over Instagram, you are the magic. So what you believe goes. You do have the power.
Absolutely. I think the Egyptians know way more than we give them credit. They weren't just fancy cavemen. They knew something way beyond with the mysteries than we do today, or that we appreciate today. It's coming back, but they knew way more. Yeah, absolutely.
Kelley, can you talk to us about the process that you go through with clients when they come to you and they're on all this medication and they're ready to do something different? What are the first few things that you would do with them to help them understand their own innate power?
Typically, so clients come and we have I have a standard process, but they come and we have a short discussion about some things, and usually everything that we have a discussion about pops up later in our session in one confirmation to the other. But when it comes to stuff like that, they typically come to me when they're ready to change or to make a change. So at that point in time, and most of them are actually doing concurrent sessions with their therapist, which I appreciate. Thank you for doing your homework as a client and trying to figure out what is going on and not settling on your life. So from that point, we would discuss then again, going back from me to their therapist to make sure that we are okay to continue as we are. Most of the stuff I suggest is not going to counteract with anything, but usually what I'll bring up right in the beginning is the work of the inner child and the shadow self, things that I want to make sure that they're addressing. I wouldn't ask them to stop any medications, but I would ask them to maybe dial it back down, or maybe to take a look into some natural supplements, like there's SAM-E, there's rhodiola root, like there's so many other types of substances that can balance you. I myself recently came up against a wall of overconsumption because I had moved from California, from Arizona back to California because my father was in passing. The situation with the family, and for me as a power of attorney and the trust, was a nightmare. And that's my dark night of the soul for sure. But I came up to the point where I was like, well, I have a lot of things available to me, especially food, home cooked food. I've got this California food I've missed for 10 years. I've now got New Orleans, which is just land of overconsumption if you're not balanced.
Uh-huh.
And I felt empty and dead inside in some ways. And I knew I needed to fix something. So that was about 3 weeks to a month ago. And Paula actually recommended a book, which I'm going to now be using as a primary book. Thank you, Paula, that I'll be recommending to clients, but it's Plant Shaman Spirituality or something along those lines. And at the same time that I was researching these master plants, which I will now be recommending to clients in so many ways, I got a message from my guys, and they're like, you need to go find a local vendor for these plants because they're going to be something that your clients are going to want to use. Prior to me discovering this book, I was already using some of the herbal certification and the herbs that I had been recommended to recommend to my clients just to balance things. But thanks to this book, I decided to contact some vendors in Tucson. I even met them recently, nice husband and wife. And I decided to try, for my first time, an herb called Ajo Sacha, which is a hunter's herb. It helps you hone in on your instincts. It helps you deplete and get rid of what doesn't belong to you. So I would recommend something like that, for instance, to clients. What that diet did for me, because it was a 5-day diet, 2 days of preparation on 2 other herbs, and then the 3 days of that, it helped me hone back into me and my instincts and me as an individual. And then also helped me open up my voice even to food. Because I realized at that time, I now needed to, as I call it, break up with food again. And I've broken up with food quite a few times in my life. And then help me reintroduce things into my system. Because I even believe if you don't thoroughly detox, and I mean really get rid of everything in your intestines, the energy of that food can stay and continue to influence you, especially the fast food. Yeah, so for clients who are even interested in those types of things and they have some mental health issues going on, really what I try to do is I try to open up their connections to the other side, including their guides. I try to make sure they leave having a guide right next to them and access very quickly. I hone into their diet and their exercise and their sleep patterns, and then also their internal voices, but finally the people that they have in their life. I really try to make sure that as they leave that place, they're not going to be going back to people who may influence, not everyone's toxic, but may influence their environment and their healing in the wrong way.
Beautiful process.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, sometimes just going back, it's just like you fall into habits because of your environment. You get, I mean, it's like, oh yeah, well, I'm here. So then I drink this, I eat this, and I hang out with these people. So sometimes you have to cut it all. It's tough, but it's sometimes necessary. Yeah.
Yeah.
The name of the book is Plant Spirit Shamanism.
There we go.
And they're not Western herbs. These are from other Peruvian herbs from different countries. And they do have some not only recipes in there, but suggestions. They're very strict ways of reclaiming your divinity and your connection to the plants and your connection to yourself and to Creator and to your guides and ancestors. What I would say about that is thank you, Kelley, for guiding people through that. You have so much experience with all of these deaths that you've occurred within yourself, not just the ones that have occurred in your life and in your family, but you have experience with that part of me died and this is what happened. And this is how I'm reclaiming my energy and reclaiming my life. So using the herbs and using plant medicine, it's such a beautiful way. But that's the name of the book, is Plant Spirit Shamanism. I always suggest to people, go to your local bookstores, go to the used bookstores, try to find them there. People put notes in them and it's great. How I discovered this book was from my mentor, Maestra Cece, and she has so many notes in there that it really explained her connection to the plants in her garden and why it was set up the way that it was. So to use the plant medicine, I started using the ajo sancho as well. And it sent me into this very quick clearing that I had to like say, oh, I'm not quite ready for that just yet. Because you do need to be near the restroom when you are purging. When you're purging your mind, your heart, your body, you need help with that. And so thank you for the continuous support that you're offering your clients to do that with. So you have so many beautiful gifts and so many deep, profound experiences that I do believe that you are this magnificent seer and shaman that has this human experience. Like, you know what to do because of the way that you do it, right? You're so curious. You were curious as a child. You're curious now. You're like, no, I don't want to believe the way that everyone is telling me. I don't even want their opinions because I know that it's not right. So in the spiritual paths that I have studied and the curanderismo path that I walk, there are a few ways that we can be initiated, and one of them is by spirit. And you definitely, we just know that you are initiated by spirit, by your own spirit, by the spirit head, all of your guides. You really, I hope that there are people that are listening are understanding that Kelley is the real deal, that she is not messing around. She's not here to play. She's here to live and experience, and that's what she is doing. Could you share with us something that either you do or that you would suggest, something ritualistic or a ceremony for people to help them to connect to that higher self, to that curious place? Like, I'm going to call it the curious place, the place of questioning. Do you have something you can share about how to get there?
Yeah, honestly, it's a day by day thing. People say baby steps. But when I went to New Orleans, someone introduced me to a new habit, and I thought that was pretty good for me. Me, as there's a lot of us out there who would take care of other people before we take care of ourselves. And I am definitely a caretaker in a lot of ways. So I'd gone to see a seer over there, and he was in one of the shops, and he mentioned spirit self. You have your spirit self, you have your higher self. He says, but your spirit self needs to be taken care of. And what he explained to me was, he's like, when you find this mate, whoever this mate's going to be in the future, you need to love your spirit self more than this person. And then this person and the love will follow. And he says, and what he introduced me to that day recently that I've been using a lot is, he's like, you're going to get this candle. It was a third eye candle. It couldn't be any candle that you pick. He's like, every single day when you wake up, you light this candle before you do anything else. What you're saying to yourself is, I love myself. This is my ritual for today. Nothing's going to get into the way of it because I've got 2 cats and I immediately pop out the bed taking care of these fools. But he's like, you're going to light this candle and focus on yourself and just think about things. For me, just the simple act of taking the lighter to the candle, making sure it's placed properly and lighting it and looking at it was enough to kickstart my reality. Outside of that, what I like to add to that is we all sit around and we watch TV and we listen to all the things and we get really crazy in our processes and the phones are in our hands, is to be very hyper aware of the amount of time you're giving these electronics. I even went so far recently as to take my couch that was sitting in front of the TV and I moved it off to the side. Right now I have a ginormous beanbag that I like to flop on in front of it, which is not something that I really use to watch TV. But my intention is to take my pelvis and my direct energy away from these electronics to say, I matter. And what I notice that it does for me is it calms down a lot of the additional voices going on in my head, and also the complete line of distraction that wants to call me right back to this TV, because I can binge watch some things. But yeah, outside of that, I really like to just take a few moments in the day, throughout the day, no matter what it is, but whenever I become aware of it, to just sit there and listen to anything going on without suggestion, because my mind does run a mile a minute. I think Dr. Campbell, I heard you mention something about your mind chatter on one of the podcasts, but I'm definitely, it's nonstop. Like, and if I'm not hearing my mind or my guides, sometimes I do tap into other people's mess.
I do too, and it's crazy.
I don't want.
I know, I got enough mess of my own. I don't need somebody else's. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And occasionally if I'm really too quiet, then also I can tap into my cats and tell someone's about to do something fun. my way. Yeah, everyone has that moment where you're like, it's too quiet. But really, it's just those simple things. I know a lot of people are like, you got to go spend whatever in nature in 15 minutes this way and that way. A lot of people don't have those options. You can turn on your TV and watch nature on YouTube. You can watch a flowing river and listen to the birds, and you can transport yourself physically and mentally there. So that is a form of meditation. I don't believe there's a right way or a wrong way, but just those simple things, lighting the candle, taking yourself away from electronics, and giving yourself moments to listen without disturbance are the biggest things. And aside from that, dancing. Dancing naked in the dark is really a lot of fun too. Just letting it all jiggle out after you've chosen the music and you've chosen the time and no one is in your beeswax.
I love it.
I love that too. Tell us, Kelley, what services are you offering in these moments in your life? What are you willing to share with the public about what you do?
It's all encompassing at this point. I mean, I'm getting recertified as a personal trainer, so I was already certified. It's nothing new to me. And I know I won't be giving like typical sessions. Maybe I will in the gym, but for the most part, really my intention at this point is to help people connect with their body, mind, spirit, and soul in its whole. My future design of these sessions, and I mean future as in students tomorrow, is really to come to have a client completely feel reconnected in their whole essence before they leave. It is my goal to open up channels when they come see me in a session to their multiple guides, including their animals, but also their ancestors. Because I've been getting messages for a long while now from the other side. It's not that we have an end of world coming. We have an end of our current consciousness that is it's continuously happening. There's no end of the world anything. We're always going to have these natural disasters. But at this time in our lives, we no longer have time to sit there and process things out for years. Even the plant medicine is working a lot quicker, as Paula mentioned, like with the flushing of the things and whatnot. So it's really my intention just to try to get clients into those modes a lot quicker. And so the pain and suffering can end a lot sooner because we're sitting in it and we don't need to be sitting in it. And that was a message that I got in one of my biggest, craziest trips back in 2018. I connected with something called the Jesus Christ consciousness. I drove back an overnight from California to Arizona and decided I'm gonna wake up at 7 in the morning. I'm not gonna eat. I'm gonna eat these shrooms at 7:07 in the morning. And I even adjusted the medicine with some lemon juice to make the trip stronger. And that was the craziest trip I've ever had in my life. There was no sound. Time basically stopped for me. We had hours of conversations about my disappointment as a human experience and their disappointment for what they expected and what is not going on. And it's not our fault. I mean, it is, but it's not. So, but what they said at that time was we were in phase 1, also known as the Kali Yuga era, the time of death and destruction. But we've moved on and we don't realize we've moved on. And so we're still in the suffering. They said phase 2 is the enjoyment. And at that time, they said, it is your job to help people get into the enjoyment. And I am all about that. And I closed that and I didn't even want to touch the medicine for 3 or 4 months because I was that scared. And at that time, in case anyone ever gets in those situations, they said, you can reset your body one of 2 ways. You can sit there and take a bath and completely submerge yourself in a body of water, because I'm in Arizona, I got desert. Or you can go to sleep for many hours and your consciousness will come back in a different way. And it worked, but it scared the crap out of me. And then 3 weeks later, a friend that I had not told anything about this trip to walked in my door and hands me some new medicine and says, here's phase 2. So they're like, just in case you wanted to act like this never happened, it has. So yes, that's.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes.
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 How do we find you? How do we get a hold of you?
You can find me on and everything pretty much says "and she's creations." There's no apostrophe in there because the internet. But I'm developing the website, so don't look for that yet. But I'm on Facebook under "and she's creations." It's under construction. That's because Facebook doesn't work well. Instagram has the meat of what I have, including sessions. You can contact me by the email, which is andshe'screations@gmail.com, or my phone number is also up there. But I'm pretty much available from this point moving forward, even though I have trips. I have completely reopened my business after the things that I've gone through, and I'm moving forward. Yes.
Yay. We're so excited to have you on the planet.
And this was amazing. I really can't thank you two enough for allowing me to open up my voice and speak, because it's not something I'm used to, but it's something I'm happy to now start doing. Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We
Thank you.
will definitely have you on again as you
Yeah.
are continuing to form your services and what you do on the planet. We have people on here that are real. We have people that are really doing the work, that are really willing to share their process and how they're sharing it. Some people have books, some people have websites, some people have services, some people, can we get a hold of you on Zoom? I mean, all of the things that we learned when the pandemic started too, that we can connect this way, and it is just as powerful. Thank you for all that you do on the planet and for bringing your light and your dark to all of us. We really appreciate it so much. We are going to put all of your information, your picture, your bio that you sent, all of your contact information in the notes for the podcast. So you don't have to memorize it. We'll put it all in there for you.
Yeah.
We'll put this on our Instagram first, and then a few days later, it'll be available on YouTube.
Great. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Do you have anything else that you want to share? Any parting words for our listeners?
I mean, for me, stay tuned, because I do have a series of books. If you can't get to me for a session, I can do Zoom. But aside from that, what I would just like to say to listeners is, do not be afraid to question every damn thing in life.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. And you don't need people's permissions, nor do you need people's help all of the time. You have lots of help from the other side. And unfortunately, in our lives, as we mentioned already, there are people going through a lot of things. So if you ask for help, sometimes you might not get the energy you need. So I would just really push people to go inside of themselves and question first, then expand out and see where you need the actual voice, the actual opinions, but start the process, because fear absolutely is wasted. It does nothing for you at all. And it just delays all of your healing and all the gifts that are waiting to come to you.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I am going to go ahead and close our sacred circle, closing, but still continuing to be in the energies of the East direction, the place of new beginnings, and our light and our dark places. And to the West direction, that place of just really just letting go of everything that we know. We just honor you so much. Thank you for giving us the references of sunrise and sunset, so that we know that someday, maybe many times in our life, that the sun will set and that it's okay. And to the South direction, calling back our personal will, we honor you. We thank you for the courage to sit in our crapola and to be okay with that. And to the North direction, for our spirit, the place of our grandmother, the place of unconditional love. And to Mother Earth, for always receiving all the things that we release and transmuting that back into creation and back into love. And to the Cosmic Board, the place that we can completely access all of our ancestors, all of our light, all of our shadows. Humbly, 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 thank you so much. And Mateo, and so it is.
Thank you, ladies. You have a good day.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's tuning in on this. We really, truly appreciate your energy and support of what we're trying to do here, which is to connect real people with real people who can forward this beautiful divine mission or divine purpose for everybody, because it's an amazing thing that we can all participate in. We know fear doesn't work. And it's so exciting to talk about these wonderful, beautiful people who are forwarding this motion so that we can all go along for the ride with it and find our own place. Remember that when it comes to divine intervention or divine purpose, there's always love behind the lightning. So thanks to everybody who is joining in with us. Thanks to Maestra Paula for always keeping it real. Thank you, Kelley. This has been a blast. I love it. It's awesome. We got to do this again. It's amazing.
Now.
So thank you, everybody, and tune in again. Remember, if you're on YouTube, please hit that little thumbs up button, like and subscribe. It just helps the channel to get in the algorithm so more people can get exposure to this and all of our wonderful guests. And we thank you a ton for joining in with us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.